Aliens tremble before rare monster, but the human just gives it belly rubs, reaches its breathtaking climax when Dr. Mira Huang defies all warnings to approach the feared Ajun. As weapons lock onto the massive creature, she extends her hand in peace. The moment crystallizes when the ancient beast, believed to be a destroyer for millennia, unexpectedly rolls over, exposing its vulnerable underbelly in an act of profound trust. The floating city of Lysara shimmered against the violet skies of Zephyria, its gleaming spires and translucent walkways suspended effortlessly among the purple-tinged clouds. From afar, the metropolis resembled a jeweled crown hovering above the dense, mysterious forest that covered much of the planet's northern hemisphere. It was the year 2475, an era when humanity had long since mastered interstellar travel, forming alliances with dozens of sentient species across the galaxy. The Cosmic Unity Protocol had opened doors to countless worlds, yet few were as technologically advanced or as rigidly structured as Zephyria. Here, order was not merely preferred, but mandated. Everything had its place, its purpose, its precise designation in the grand scheme of their society. Dr. Mira Huang stood at the observation deck of the research vessel, Curiosity, watching as Lysara grew larger in the view screen. Her dark eyes reflected the city's twinkling lights, a mixture of anticipation and professional detachment evident in her gaze. As the leading human ecological specialist assigned to this mission, she had reviewed every scrap of data about Zephyria for months. Yet, nothing in the reports had prepared her for the ethereal beauty of the planet, or the palpable tension that seemed to radiate from it. "Final approach to docking station Epsilon 7, announced the ship's AI in a pleasant, gender-neutral voice. Atmospheric composition within human tolerance parameters. Local time is 1437. Please prepare for gravitational adjustment." Mira nodded, though the AI required no such acknowledgement. She gathered her tablet, smoothed down the front of her Earth Alliance uniform, a practical gray jumpsuit with blue piping that indicated her scientific specialty, and headed toward the exit chamber. Her long black hair was pulled back in a sensible braid, and her movements were calm and purposeful, betraying none of the excitement she felt inside. This mission represented everything she had worked for, a chance to study unique alien ecosystems, to understand rather than conquer. "Dr. Huang," called Captain Lauren from behind her. "A final briefing before you disembark." Mira turned, raising an eyebrow in question. "The Zephyrian High Council has requested that you attend an emergency meeting immediately upon arrival," the captain said, his weathered face serious. "Something about anomalous readings in the northern forest expanse. They're quite agitated." "Agitated?" Mira repeated. "That's unexpected. The Zephyrians are known for their emotional restraint." "Indeed," the captain agreed. "Whatever they've detected has them breaking protocol. Be careful down there, Doctor. You're representing not just Earth Alliance, but all of humanity." Mira nodded solemnly. "I understand the responsibility, Captain. This won't be my first diplomatic mission." But as the docking clamps engaged, and the airlock hissed open to reveal a delegation of tall, silver-skinned Zephyrians, waiting with rigid postures and tense expressions, Mira realized this mission might be unlike any she had undertaken before. The lead Zephyrian stepped forward, towering nearly 7 feet tall. His silver skin had a slight blue undertone that Mira knew indicated high rank in their society. "Dr. Mira Huang of Earth," he said, his translator device converting his musical language to crisp English. "I am High Counselor Zeth. Your arrival is timely. The Ajin has awakened." The other Zephyrians visibly stiffened at the mention of this name, their normally impassive faces showing unmistakable fear. "The Ajun?" Mira questioned, searching her mental database for the term. It hadn't appeared in any of her briefing materials. High Counselor Zeth's silver eyes widened slightly. You do not know of the Great Destroyer? The ancient devourer of worlds? The beast that comes once in a millennium to remind us of our mortality? Mira kept her expression neutral, though her scientific curiosity was immediately piqued. I'm afraid Earth Alliance has no record of this entity in our shared databases. Perhaps if you could provide more specific data. There is no time, interrupted another Zephyrian, this one wearing the distinctive armor of their military caste. I am General Rose, commander of Zephyria's defense forces. The Ajun has been detected in the northern forest expanse, and it is moving. Every moment we delay puts more lives at risk. Mira took a deep breath, centering herself. Whatever this Ajun was, it clearly represented something deeply frightening to the Zephyrians, a species not known for acknowledging fear. Then, we should proceed to this emergency meeting immediately, she said calmly. I would like to see all available data on this creature. As they escorted her through the floating city, Mira observed the unusual activity around them. Citizens hurried through the normally orderly streets, some carrying what appeared to be family heirlooms or precious possessions. Military vessels patrolled the skies, their sleek designs reminiscent of predatory fish. Public announcement systems broadcast something in the native Zephyrian language. The musical tones, somehow managing to convey urgency despite their beauty. They're being told to prepare for possible evacuation, General Rose explained, noticing her attention to the announcements. It has been 873 years since the last appearance of the Ajun. Many thought it was merely legend, a story to frighten children, but our ancestors were wise to maintain the warning systems. They entered a vast circular chamber at what appeared to be the center of the city. A holographic display dominated the middle of the room, showing a dense forest area with a pulsing red marker deep within it. Around the display stood various Zephyrian officials, their silver skin shimmering under the artificial lights, their faces masks of controlled fear. The Emergency Council is assembled, announced High Counselor Zeth. We welcome Dr. Mira Huang of Earth, ecological specialist, who may provide insight into the containment or destruction of the Ajun. Mira stepped forward, her scientific mind already analyzing the situation. Before we discuss containment or destruction, I need to understand what exactly we're dealing with. What is the Ajun, beyond legend? What scientific data do you have? An elderly Zephyrian with elaborate silver markings around her eyes approached the holographic display. I am Archivist Tella. The Ajun is not merely legend, Dr. Huang. It is a biological entity of immense size and destructive capability. She manipulated the controls, and the display shifted to show historical footage, grainy and clearly ancient, of devastation. Entire sections of forest flattened, structures crumbled, and in the distance, a massive shape moving through the destruction. The last emergence was in the year 1602 by your Earth calendar, Tella continued. The Ajun destroyed 3 settlement nodes and killed over 12,000 Zephyrians before returning to dormancy. Previous records show similar patterns of destruction dating back over 20,000 years. Mira studied the footage carefully. What can you tell me about its biology? Size, physical characteristics, behavior patterns? General Rose stepped forward impatiently. It is a monster. Dr. Huang, over 100 meters in length, armored scales that change color, a roar that can shatter buildings. What more do you need to know to help us destroy it? Mira met his gaze steadily. A great deal more, General. Is it sentient? What does it eat? Why does it emerge only periodically? Is it the last of its kind, or are there others? Has anyone ever attempted communication instead of simply trying to destroy it? A murmur ran through the assembled council at her questions. Communication, General Rose scoffed. With a creature that has brought only death throughout our recorded history? With respect, General, Mira replied. Many species appear monstrous or threatening until properly understood. On Earth, we once feared great whales as sea monsters, only to discover they were among the most gentle and intelligent creatures in our oceans. High Counselor Zeth raised a hand for silence. Dr. Huang's perspective is unexpected, but not unwelcome. The Earth Alliance is known for their ecological preservation efforts. However, our immediate concern is the safety of our people. Our sensors indicate the Ajun is moving toward populated areas. Mira nodded, understanding their fear. Of course, safety must come first, but I would propose a dual approach. Prepare your defenses if necessary, but allow me to gather data and possibly attempt non-violent contact. The council erupted in shocked exclamations, the musical Zephyrian language rising to a cacophony of alarm tones. "Silence!" commanded Zeth. Then, turning to Mira, "You would approach the Ajun willingly?" "With proper precautions, yes," Mira confirmed. "My ship carries advanced ecological survey equipment, including remote drones and bioprotective gear. If the Ajun follows patterns similar to Earth's apex predators, there may be ways to understand and redirect its behavior without resorting to violence." General Rose's expression hardened. "While the doctor conducts her research, I recommend immediate deployment of our plasma artillery to the perimeter of the northern forest expanse. Any creature exceeding 20 meters in size should be considered hostile and eliminated without hesitation." Mira opened her mouth to object, but High Counselor Zeth spoke first. "Approved, General. Begin deployment immediately." To Mira, he added, "You may proceed with your research, Dr. Huang, but be aware that if the Ajun approaches our population centers, we will not hesitate to destroy it, regardless of its scientific value." Mira inclined her head in acknowledgement, though inwardly she was already formulating plans to prevent such an outcome. Throughout her career, she had never encountered a species that didn't deserve understanding before judgment. She doubted the Ajun would be the first exception. As the council dispersed to their various duties, Archivist Tella approached Mira privately. "Your approach is unusual, Dr. Huang," the elderly Zephyrian said softly. "In all our records, no one has ever suggested attempting communication with the Ajun. Perhaps that's why it continues to be a threat," Mira suggested gently. "What do your legends say about its intelligence, its motivations?" Tella's silver eyes took on a distant look. "The oldest stories, those predating our scientific era, speak of the Ajun as a guardian, not a destroyer. It was said to emerge only when the balance of our world was threatened." She shook her head. "But that was before the Great Rationalization, when our society still believed in mystical forces." Mira filed this information away carefully. Myths often contained kernels of truth, especially regarding ecological relationships. "Thank you, Archivist. This perspective may be valuable." Within hours, Mira had established a temporary research base at the edge of the northern forest expanse. The Zephyrians had provided her with local assistance, though she noted they all wore emergency transport beacons, clearly ready to evacuate at the first sign of danger. Meanwhile, General Rose's forces had surrounded the forest with an impressive array of weapons platforms, drone squadrons, and armored vehicles. "Your military response seems excessive," Mira observed as General Rose inspected the perimeter. "You have not seen the Ajun, Dr. Huang," he replied grimly. "I have studied the historical footage since childhood. Nothing in your human experience has prepared you for such a creature." "Perhaps," Mira conceded. "But I've worked with supposedly monstrous species across 17 different planets. The magma worms of Proxima Centauri were once thought to be mindless destroyers until we discovered they were trying to protect their nurseries from mining operations." General Rose gave her a look that might almost have been pity. "Deploy your drones. Doctor, gather your data, but do not interfere with my defensive operations." Mira nodded curtly and returned to her equipment. With practiced efficiency, she programmed the survey drones. Sleek, silent machines designed to observe without disturbing their subjects. Each carried sensors, capable of detecting everything from body temperature to pheromone emissions, along with high-resolution cameras and audio recorders. "Launch sequence initiated," she murmured, sending the first wave of drones into the dense purple foliage of the Zephyrian forest. On her tablet, multiple feeds appeared, showing the verdant alien landscape from various angles. The forest itself was fascinating. Trees with spiral trunks that reached hundreds of meters skyward, bioluminescent fungi that pulsed with gentle light, floating seed pods that drifted like tiny jellyfish through the air. Hours passed as Mira monitored the drone feeds, making notes on the ecosystem. The Zephyrian assistants had long since retreated to a safer distance, leaving her alone with her equipment and determination. Night fell, casting the forest in deeper purples and blues, the bioluminescence creating an ethereal glow throughout the landscape. And then, shortly after midnight, the first drone detected movement. Mira sat up straight, her heart racing as she focused on the feed. Something large was moving through the forest, yet with surprising grace for its size. Trees bent, rather than broke as it passed, almost as if the forest itself was accommodating the creature's passage. "Track and follow," she commanded the drone softly. "Maintain safe distance. Full sensor suite active." The drone adjusted its position, rising higher to capture a broader view. And there it was, the Ajun. Mira's breath caught in her throat. The creature was magnificent. Over 100 meters long as reported, with a serpentine body covered in scales that seemed to shift color with each movement, perfectly blending with its surroundings despite its enormous size. Its head was massive, with features that might have appeared fearsome at first glance. Prominent jaw ridges, multiple sensory appendages that resembled horns, eyes that glowed with bioluminescence, similar to the forest fungi. But what struck Mira most was not its fearsome aspects but the grace and intelligence evident in its movements. This was no mindless destroyer. Every motion seemed deliberate, careful, almost gentle despite its size. "Remarkable," she whispered, quickly activating the communication link to the Zephyrian command center. "High Counselor, General, are you receiving this feed?" "We see it," came General Rosa's tense reply. "The beast approaches the forest edge. Weapons are charged and ready." "Wait," Mira urged. "Look at how it moves. It's taking care not to damage the forest unnecessarily. That indicates intelligence, awareness." "Or cunning," countered the general. "Predators are often careful until they strike." Mira frowned, studying the readings from the drone's sensors. Its body temperature is elevated compared to the surrounding environment, but stable. Respiration rate is slow and regular. No signs of aggressive hormones or stress indicators. If anything, it appears curious. "Dr. Huang," High Counselor Zeth's voice joined the conversation. "While your observations are interesting, the Ajun is now less than 10 kilometers from the outer agricultural sectors. We cannot risk—" He was interrupted by a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very air. A deep, resonant call that made the drone's audio sensors momentarily overload. The Ajun had raised its massive head and was vocalizing, the sound echoing through the forest and beyond. On another monitor, Mira saw the Zephyrian forces react immediately, weapon systems locking onto the source of the sound. "Hold your fire!" she shouted into the comm. "That wasn't aggression. It was communication." "Communication," General Rose repeated incredulously. "That roar has preceded destruction for millennia." "It's not a roar," Mira insisted, quickly analyzing the audio patterns. "It's a complex vocalization with distinct patterns, similar to what we might call song in cetacean species on Earth. I need to get closer, to attempt response." "Absolutely not," ordered the general. "Remain at your position. Dr. Huang, this is now a military operation." Mira watched in growing alarm as the weapon platforms began to power up, their targeting systems focused on the magnificent creature. Without conscious thought, she found herself making a decision that went against all protocol, but aligned perfectly with her deepest principles. "I'm sending in the T-9X," she announced, activating their most advanced drone, a robot capable of carrying small payloads and broadcasting various signals. With food offerings and acoustic response patterns. "Dr. Huang, you are not authorized," General Rose began, but Mira had already muted the communication link. She worked quickly, loading the T-9X with protein-rich food supplements developed for large alien species and programming it with synthesized responses based on the Ajun's own vocalizations, but at a much lower volume and intensity. If her theory was correct, the creature's calls weren't threats, but attempts to communicate with a world that had only ever responded with fear and violence. "Go!" she whispered, launching the T-9X toward the Ajun's position. On her screen, she watched as the small robot approached the enormous creature, broadcasting the gentle echo of its own call. The Ajun froze, its massive head turning toward the tiny machine with what Mira could only interpret as surprise. It lowered its head, enormous eyes focusing on the robot with an intensity that seemed to convey intelligence. Heart pounding, Mira triggered the food release. The T-9X deposited the protein packages on a clear patch of ground, then retreated slightly, not fleeing, but giving space. For several tense moments, the Ajun remained motionless. Then, with unexpected delicacy, it extended what appeared to be a smaller secondary appendage from near its jaw and carefully investigated the offering. To Mira's delight, it consumed the food, its massive eyes never leaving the robot. "It's working," she breathed, quickly, unmuting the comm link. "Are you seeing this? It's accepting the offering. Non-aggressive contact established." There was silence from the command center. Then High Counselor Zeth's voice, sounding shaken. "In all our history, this has never been attempted, let alone succeeded. The creature is merely assessing a potential trap," General Rose argued, though his voice lacked its previous certainty. "One peaceful interaction does not negate millennia of destruction." "But what if those destructive episodes were misunderstandings?" Mira countered, emboldened by the successful contact. "What if the Ajun was defending itself from perceived threats? Your own archivist mentioned ancient legends describing it as a guardian." Through the drone's camera, she watched as the Ajun made another vocalization, softer this time, almost questioning in its tonal quality. The T-9X faithfully reproduced a response, maintaining the dialogue. "I need to see this myself," Mira decided, standing and moving toward the storage unit, where her bioprotective gear was stowed. "The drone is establishing rapport, but true communication will require direct contact." "That is suicide, Doctor," General Rose stated flatly. "I forbid it." Mira paused, choosing her next words carefully. "General, High Counselor, in approximately 6 hours, the Ajun will reach your agricultural sector based on its current trajectory. You can either attempt to destroy it with weapons that, according to your own historical records, have always failed in the past, or you can allow me 1 hour to attempt communication that might prevent bloodshed on both sides." A tense silence followed her ultimatum. Finally, High Counselor Zeth spoke. "You have 1 hour, Dr. Huang. After that, if the Ajun has not changed course, General Rose has my authorization to proceed with the defense plan." "Thank you," Mira replied, already sealing herself into the bioprotective suit, a marvel of Earth technology that would shield her from environmental hazards while maintaining maximum mobility. "I'll maintain constant communication." "This is against my better judgment," General Rose growled. "But I will position a rapid extraction team nearby. At the first sign of aggression, they will retrieve you, willing or not." Mira acknowledged the precaution with a nod, though her focus was already elsewhere. As she made final adjustments to her suit and gathered additional protein packages, her mind flashed back to her childhood on Earth, to a rainy evening when she had found an injured wildcat in the preserve where her parents worked. Everyone had warned her to keep away from the frightened, pain-maddened creature, but young Mira had seen past the bared teeth and flattened ears to the fear beneath, approaching with gentle words and offerings until the wildcat allowed her close enough to help. Some things transcended species boundaries. Fear looked the same across the galaxy, as did pain and trust. The journey into the forest passed in a blur of anticipation and professional focus. Mira followed the signal from the T9X, moving carefully through the alien landscape, alert to every sound and movement around her. The bioluminescent flora provided enough light to navigate by, casting everything in an ethereal blue-purple glow that might have been beautiful under other circumstances. As she drew nearer to the coordinates, the forest seemed to vibrate with a low-frequency hum that she felt more than heard. The Ajun, communicating in ranges that bordered on infrasound. Her suit's sensors translated the vibrations into audible patterns, allowing her to perceive what the Zephyrians might have interpreted as threatening rumbles, but which sounded, to her trained ear, like the complex songs of Earth's whales. And then, suddenly, she was there, in a clearing created not by destruction, but by the natural architecture of the forest, where massive spiral trees created a cathedral-like space, bathed in bioluminescent light. The Ajun occupied the center of this space, its enormous body curled in a loose spiral, its head raised at a height that put it nearly 50 meters above the forest floor. The T9X hovered nearby, still broadcasting its gentle response patterns. Mira stood at the edge of the clearing, momentarily awestruck by the creature's presence. Up close, its scales were even more remarkable, semi-translucent, shifting through colors that matched the surrounding environment with such precision that parts of its body seemed to disappear into the background. Its eyes, proportionally small for its massive head, but still larger than Mira herself, gleamed with an intelligence that confirmed her theories. This was no mindless monster. This was a sentient being. Taking a deep breath, she activated her suit's external speaker and stepped forward into the clearing. "Hello," she said simply, knowing that the word itself meant nothing to the creature, but that her presence and peaceful approach might convey her intent. The Ajun's massive head swung toward her, movement so swift that Mira had to fight her instinctive urge to flee. It lowered itself, bringing those enormous eyes level with her position, studying her with unmistakable curiosity. "I am Mira," she continued, keeping her voice steady as she slowly raised her empty hands to show she carried no weapons. "I come in peace." The creature emitted a low-frequency sound that made the ground beneath her feet vibrate. Her suit translated the complex harmonics, not words, but emotions, curiosity, caution, and something that might have been loneliness. Slowly, telegraphing her movements, Mira removed one of the protein packages from her suit's utility pouch. She placed it on the ground before her, then stepped back, maintaining eye contact with the enormous being. The Ajun studied her for several long moments, then extended the smaller appendage she had observed earlier, a surprisingly dexterous limb that emerged from beneath its jaw. With delicate precision that belied its massive size, it collected the offering. "That's right," Mira encouraged, smiling behind her helmet. "We can be friends, you and I." In her ear, the communication link crackled. "Dr. Huang, status report," came General Rosa's tense voice. "Peaceful contact established," she replied softly. "The Ajun is intelligent and non-aggressive. I am attempting to build trust." "The defense platforms are still tracking its position," the general warned. "You have 37 minutes remaining in your allotted time." Mira acknowledged this with a grim determination. 37 minutes to prevent a slaughter. She needed to accelerate this connection. Drawing on everything she had learned about xenobiology and interspecies communication, she began a slow, graceful movement pattern with her arms and body, a modified version of an ancient earth Tai Chi form, designed to communicate peaceful intent through non-threatening motion. As she moved, she hummed softly, creating her own version of the Ajun song, but in a register audible to human ears. The great creature watched, utterly still, except for the slow rhythm of its breathing. Then, to Mira's amazement, it began to mirror her movements with the smaller appendages near its head, creating a synchronized dance of human and alien. Extraordinary, breathed High Counselor Zeth through the comlink. Mira realized that the entire Zephyrian command center must be watching this interaction through her suit's cameras. Encouraged, she continued the dance, gradually moving closer to the Ajun with each cycle of movement. The creature made no move to retreat or attack, its enormous eyes tracking her with what she could only interpret as fascination. When she was close enough to feel the heat radiating from its massive body, Mira stopped and slowly extended her hand, palm up, the universal gesture of offering across countless species. The Ajun lowered its head further, bringing it almost to the ground before her. Up close, she could see that what had appeared fearsome in ancient Zephyrian footage was actually a face of remarkable complexity, sensory organs arranged in patterns that suggested adaptation to multiple environmental factors, jaw structures designed for varied food sources, and eyes that held depths of awareness she had seen in only the most intelligent species. It made a sound, softer than before, almost a purr that vibrated through her suit. And then, in a gesture that would change the course of Zephyrian history, it rolled slightly to one side, exposing the lighter scales of its underbelly. Mira's scientific mind raced with understanding. This was a vulnerable position, a display of trust that transcended language barriers. Among many Earth species, exposing the underbelly was the ultimate sign of submission or trust. Without hesitation, she reached out and placed her gloved hand against the exposed scales. They were warm and surprisingly soft, with a subtle pulse beneath them that suggested a complex circulatory system. "Dr. Huang," General Rosa's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing?" "Building trust," she replied simply, as she began to gently stroke the Ajun's underbelly. "It's showing vulnerability, a universal sign of non-aggression." The massive creature made a sound that could only be described as contented, the vibrations running through Mira's body like a physical manifestation of connection. In that moment, she knew with certainty that the legends of the Ajun as a destroyer were at best tragic misunderstandings, and at worst, deliberate misinterpretations of a magnificent being whose real crime had been its difference. "General Rose, High Counselor Zeth," she said firmly, "I am now certain that the Ajun poses no threat to Zephyria if approached peacefully. I request immediate stand-down of all military forces and establishment of a protected ecological zone in the northern forest expanse." There was a moment of stunned silence from the command center. Then High Counselor Zeth spoke, his musical voice holding a note of awe. "In all our recorded history, never has anyone touched the Ajun and lived to tell of it." "Perhaps," Mira suggested gently, continuing her rhythmic stroking of the creature's underbelly, "no one ever tried to touch it with kindness instead of weapons." The silence that followed was broken by General Rose, his voice strained but decisive. "Stand down all weapon platforms. Maintain positions but power down targeting systems." After a pause, he added, "And send research teams to the perimeter. If the doctor is correct, there is much we need to learn." Mira smiled, feeling the tension drain from her body. She continued her gentle belly rubs, marveling at how this simple act of compassion had accomplished what centuries of military might could not. "Hello, beautiful one," she murmured to the Ajun. You've been alone for a very long time, haven't you? Not anymore. The creature's response was a deep, harmonious rumble that seemed to carry not just sound, but emotion. A complex melody that her suit's translator interpreted as contentment, mixed with something like hope. In the days that followed, Lysara witnessed changes that would have been unimaginable just a week earlier. The military cordon around the northern forest expanse was replaced by a scientific outpost dedicated to studying and communicating with the Ajun. Citizens who had been preparing to evacuate now cautiously gathered at observation points, watching in wonder as the enormous creature permitted Mira and her growing team of Zephyrian scientists to approach, sample its scales for analysis, and even attach non-invasive monitoring devices to better understand its biology. "The genetic structure is like nothing we've seen before," reported one excited Zephyrian researcher, analyzing a scale sample in the hastily established field laboratory. "The chromatic adaptability alone could revolutionize our medical technology." More surprising still was the discovery that the Ajun scales contained compounds that might combat a degenerative neural condition that had plagued Zephyrians for generations, a finding that transformed the creature overnight from feared monster to potential savior in the public consciousness. General Rose, initially the most skeptical of the peaceful approach, had become a regular visitor to the research outpost. Mira found him one evening, staring thoughtfully at the Ajun as it rested in a clearing. Several junior scientists carefully monitoring its vital signs from a respectful distance. "You were right," he admitted without preamble. "We have been wrong for millennia." Mira stood beside him, watching the gentle rise and fall of the Ajun's massive flank as it breathed. "Fear often clouds judgment," she replied, not unkindly. "It's a universal constant, regardless of species." "Our historical records are being re-examined," the general continued. "Archivist Tella has found evidence suggesting that previous Ajun appearances coincided with ecological disturbances, times when our exploitation of resources threatened the planet's balance." "A guardian, not a destroyer," Mira murmured, recalling Tella's mention of the ancient legends. "Yes." Rosa's silver features softened with what might have been regret. "We attacked what we did not understand, and in doing so, created the very enemy we feared." The High Council had officially redesignated the Ajun as a protected ecological keystone species, with Mira appointed as the first Harmony Ambassador, a position created specifically to oversee the new relationship between Zephyrians and the creature they had feared for so long. Public opinion had transformed with remarkable speed, aided by viral footage of Mira's first belly rub encounter. Children now played with Ajun plush toys. Artists created works celebrating its beauty rather than its terror. And scientists from across the galaxy requested permission to study the unique, symbiotic relationship developing between the formerly feared creature and its environment. For Mira herself, the experience had been transformative on a personal level. From a scientist focused primarily on data and analysis, she had become something of a cultural bridge, not just between humans and Zephyrians, but between an entire planet and the magnificent being it had misunderstood for millennia. On her final evening before departing with the Cosmic Peace Fleet to share the story with other worlds, Mira sat alone with the Ajun in what had become their regular meeting place, a beautiful clearing where bioluminescent fungi created patterns of light that danced across the creature's scales. "I have to leave tomorrow," she told it, knowing that while it might not understand her specific words, it had grown sensitive to her emotional states. "But I'll return, and others will continue our work here." The Ajun lowered its massive head to the ground beside her, a gesture that had become familiar, an invitation. Smiling, Mira reached out to stroke the now familiar scales of its underbelly, marveling again at how something so simple could have changed so much. "Sometimes," she murmured, All it takes is a gentle touch to change history. As if in response, the Ajun made the harmonious rumbling sound that Mira had come to recognize as contentment. In the fading purple light of Zephyria's sunset, human and monster shared a moment of perfect understanding, a testament to the power of compassion across the boundaries of species, planets, and fear itself. In the morning, Mira would board the Cosmic Peace Fleet's flagship, carrying the story of the Ajun to worlds throughout the galaxy. But for now, in this perfect moment, she continued her gentle belly rubs, savoring the connection that had been forged not through force or fear, but through the universal language of kindness. And somewhere, in the vast archive of Zephyrian history, the story of the fearsome Ajun was being rewritten, not as a tale of terror, but as a lesson in the power of understanding, and the remarkable courage of a human woman who saw beyond fear to the beauty that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. As the twin moons of Zephyria rose above the forest, casting their silvery light over the clearing, Mira realized that her mission had evolved far beyond ecological research. She had become a bridge between worlds, a translator of the heart's language that transcended species boundaries. The belly rubs that had begun as an instinctive gesture of connection had become a symbol of something far greater, the possibility that throughout the vast cosmos, kindness might be the most universal language of all. "Good night, my friend," she whispered to the Ajun, giving its scales a final, affectionate stroke. "Tomorrow brings new adventures for us both." The creature's response was a gentle harmonic that seemed to resonate with the very stars above, a melody of hope that would echo across galaxies, changing perceptions and opening hearts, one belly rub at a time.